I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. Hunger is a policy choice. There is nobody in this state or this country who should be going hungry. We know SNAP is one of the most powerful ways to end hunger. For every meal we can provide in the emergency food system, SNAP provides 9. There is no pantry or food bank that can make up for the SNAP program. Everybody in our community should eat. We can't stop until they do.
This chess, it ain't checkers.
What up, y'all? I'm Doma T. Pongo, and this is Chess Not Checkers, where we have quality conversations with interesting people over games of chess. And this is a special episode because we're not actually playing a game on the board, but we're talking about how government officials are playing chess with the lives of individuals in our state of Illinois, where we are right now, but also all over the country. And I couldn't have a more interesting guest than the VP of Policy and Advocacy at the Greater Chicago Food Depository, Ms. Danielle Perry.
Thank you so much for having me.
Man, thank you for being here. And one of the reasons I asked Danielle to come up here is because we've been talking about food insecurity. And recently, as you guys may have seen, 4.3 million people or so have been rolled off of the SNAP benefits program, which means that food insecurity is becoming an even more important issue. Danielle's a part of the Save Our SNAP campaign, and we're going to get into all of that. But before we do that, I just found out my sister was not only from the crib, but also an HBCU alum. I'm not, but I love y'all. But can you tell me a little bit about how you got into the work that you're doing? And yeah, just give me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, cool. I am from here. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, went to Homewood Flossmoor, but went straight to D.C. I was a graduate of Howard University and Howard School of Law. My time at Howard, I did everything. My mom would say I was president of the bathroom committee. Like, I was president of everything, whether that's I was president of the undergraduate student body and then the graduate student body, eventually on the board of trustees. So I was very active in, student government. I also interned on the Hill for Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. And that's where I got my taste of, what politics was really like. I left college, and then went straight to law school. I was the youngest person in my class, 21 years old.
Wow.
So graduated from law school pretty young, and that's when I kind of got into politics. I did some campaign work, eventually worked for President Obama in his Department of Agriculture as an appointee, worked on the Hill for many years, and eventually came back home, decided to bring my talents back home to just be a part of the work that was happening here. I ran a nonprofit in Inglewood called Growing Home. It's an amazing workforce development nonprofit that has an urban farm, and we help people mostly who are formerly incarcerated get back into the workforce. And I love that work. Eventually got appointed by Governor Pritzker to run cannabis and all the work that they did around legalization and trying to get people of color in the industry. I had a unique mix. I was an attorney, had worked in a community that was hardest hit by the war on drugs, but also for people who were formerly incarcerated. So everything Illinois wanted to do in cannabis, I kind of was a poster child for that. And so they reached out to me. I led that work in trying to diversify that industry, and then eventually worked at Capital One in their corporate social responsibility team, giving money back to the community from Capital One, which was an amazing experience. And then Kate and I had a conversation about me joining the Food Depository and coming back to Chicago, and I was like, why not? Let's do it. We didn't know the big, beautiful bill was going to happen. We were just talking about what would it take to actually end hunger. And I was excited by that question of what would it take? And I was like, well, we were going to really end hunger. We had to look at poverty generally, racism. Why are people hungry to begin with? She seemed really down with me coming and helping them come up with a strategy to end hunger. And within 3 months of me taking this job, the big, beautiful bill passed. So my whole life got turned upside down. So I can't focus necessarily on poverty right this second because we need to save this program because so many people eat because of SNAP. And so now we lead a statewide coalition and effort to save this program, and I've been doing that ever since.
Tell me about what elements of the big, beautiful bill turn your work upside down. Because, Trump and Republicans have talked about this bill within the context of narratives that they want to perpetuate about the communities it will affect. Tell me about the real substantive issues and how it affects those communities.
So I always say hunger is a policy choice. This is one of the richest places in the world. If we are going to allow people to go hungry, we made that choice. And they made that choice with this bill. The decisions around SNAP are pretty straightforward. Number one, it impacts who's eligible generally. So people who are legally present immigrants who were always qualified for SNAP, they no longer can have it. That's an asylum seeker, refugee, people like that. On April 1st, in this state and all across the country, they lost this benefit. So that was one of the first things they went after, right? The second is they shifted some of the responsibility for SNAP to the state. SNAP has 100% been federally funded for its history. And part of that is because it's so big. It ebbs and flows with inflation and crisis and things like that. The federal government has the ability to swell and get smaller like that because it's big enough.
Right.
States don't have the funding to pay for everybody to have this benefit. But that's the clever part of the Big Beautiful Bill. They shifted, depending on your state, 5, 10, 15% of the benefit cost to states. And state legislatures, states' budgets can't really afford it. So what's going to end up happening is if the state cannot pay its portion, everybody in the state will lose the benefit.
So the federal government shifted the part that they used to fund for these states.
Part of it to
part
the
of
state.
it, the benefit cost to the state. So if the state did not already have these funds, which most states aren't necessarily operating from a surplus,
It's over.
it's over with.
For everybody. It's not going to be a portion. So Illinois, for example, moving forward, we're going to owe $800 million a year to operate SNAP. It's like a match program. We pay 15%, the federal government will pay 85%. If we don't pay that 15%, that's like the state kind of telling the federal government, we don't have it. And the federal government will say, well, there's nothing to match. And therefore, all 2 million people in the state of Illinois will lose their benefits, and it's over.
How close are we to that being a reality?
So that bill is due October 2027. And that's why I say we've created a campaign and a coalition to fight for this program, because we basically have to prepare our state, meaning have conversations with our state reps, state senators, our governor, to talk about, can we afford this? And if we can't, do we need to raise taxes to be able to afford it? And what does that look like? And can we make that happen in 1 year?
And can we even have that conversation around midterms?
Right. Is there political will to raise taxes in a moment like this?
Speaking of political will, what is the rationale or the stated rationale from the Trump administrative perspective as to put this forward?
To save money and to give money to billionaires, you know, it's taking money from people who need it the most to support the people who need it the least.
Let's take a step back and just define the SNAP program, how it evolved from welfare programs, from food stamp programs that started way back in the Great Depression. Can you just walk us through how we got to what SNAP is today?
Yeah, so SNAP, it really isn't different than the food stamp program. It's a new name, but
It's just the same thing?
Yeah. Most people, I have to say, when I say SNAP, I always say food stamps. And in Illinois, I always say link, because the person receiving it typically is not calling it SNAP.
Right.
They're like, my food stamps or my link
Or my
card.
link.
Yeah,
Or if
link.
you're not in Illinois, EBT maybe.
Right, 100%. They have a name everywhere.
Yep.
So it's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It is the same as we think of when we think of food stamps. It's a supplement to people's budget. I like to say some stuff up front about SNAP. Number one, 80% of people who receive it are children, seniors, and people with disabilities. So when you talk about these tropes or things that people say about who's on the program, they want you to believe that it's a person sitting on the couch chilling, playing video games, or to play into the welfare queen kind of trope. But 80% are the most vulnerable people in our society, our seniors, our children, and people with disabilities. That's worth saying up front.
Yeah, yes.
Then when you get to the other sliver of 20%, most of those people are working people who work every single day, sometimes multiple jobs. But it's not really an issue of are they lazy and need to be working. It's really about their wages. What
Right.
are they making that they need to be supplemented to be able to afford food? Right? And so it's really a program to supplement your budget so that you will have money for food. And what it looks like, it comes in the form of like a card, like a credit card almost, where you have money that's put on that you can use in the grocery store. But some people don't even know, like, they can't even get prepared foods. Like, they couldn't buy a rotisserie chicken today with SNAP. It's rice and beans, chicken, you know, frozen food, but it's not necessarily, if you're a senior or a person with disability, you might need a hot meal that you could just get at the grocery store. You couldn't even use your SNAP for that. So people think they're out buying outlandish things, but the truth is it's actually pretty limiting what you can get.
Yeah, let's talk to, because I want to talk to those affected, but I also want because advocacy is going to take people who are privileged enough to maybe have never had Link to understand. So let's break down some of the misconceptions about SNAP. So you've already let us know about who's on this. 80% are the elderly, disabled, and children. What are some of the other misconceptions around public aid?
Well, the other is that you could buy all kinds of stuff on it, and that's not true. So we talked about that.
Yeah. You can't buy ready-made products like if you couldn't go to Subway and get some SNAP. It's got to be raw food.
Right, and I think people just imagine that you could just take it and buy anything. Like if I went in the store, you went in the store, and I needed chicken, but I also needed cleaning supplies. You couldn't use your SNAP for that.
Correct.
You got to clean your house. You need other things, but you cannot use it for everything that you can get in the store that you or I could use. I think that's an important myth. I think people imagine that people are getting thousands and thousands of dollars. But I don't know, most seniors get $23, which is the minimum. $23 a month. This is a person on Social Security on a fixed income, and most of our seniors are getting the minimum. You and I both know, what can I get in the store with $23 at this point? So it's not this thousands of dollars that people are getting that people assume. I think also, it's not quite a myth, but I think it's important to note that when people think of SNAP, they just think of the individual. The other change that I didn't tell you was that there are work requirements with SNAP. The big, beautiful bill just changed who has to prove that they're working 80 hours a month. I think a lot of people assume that no one's working on this benefit or that, everybody's just at home chilling type of thing. Yeah. But a lot of people are, in fact, working. They just might not be able to navigate the paperwork of now proving that you're working, getting it in, taking it to the state, getting all the forms in on time. And it's not, I think people also assume that folks are nefarious or lying about what they have or what their bills are. But the truth is, I think that's not the case. I think it's just the ability to navigate all these systems and bureaucracy.
That's such a good point. I want to stay there for a moment, because if you have ever had to intimately experience what this process is like, if you call the SNAP office, if you call any government agency related to this, you're going to be put on hold for a long time. If you're thinking about a mother who can't sit on the phone for several hours and wait on an operator to answer. If you think about somebody who has multiple jobs and can't get on there.
Exactly.
If you have to prove employment and you work at a number of temp agencies, for example, right?
Yes.
These things, this documentation is not as easy to come by as people think. And the departments to whom you have to send this information are unresponsive oftentimes. And I'm speaking from experience. Like when you actually go through the process, it is a very arduous process. So imagining that it's gotten even more difficult is even more frustrating. Tell me about the volunteer requirement now. You talked about the 80-hour a month work requirement.
What I love about this is, I remember when I first started this work, I was a little discouraged and like, what if we can't get everybody a job? But actually, you can either be working the 80 hours a month, or you can volunteer 80 hours a month, or you can participate in a job training program. And so that kind of means to me, we can find something for everybody. You can even mix stuff. So imagine you're an hourly worker, and this month, out of your control, they only put you on the schedule for 60 hours. You can volunteer the other 20. And that is the blessing of this, is that I don't want to see people volunteering. Let me just say that up front. I would like to see people working and having the ability to work. But everybody can't manifest a job out of the sky blue. And so if you need to volunteer to keep this benefit, it's important that you know that's an option. Also, there's a new job training program that the state approved that's online. That's amazing too. So you can do,
that's in Illinois or is that nationwide?
Illinois. Job Ready Illinois. It's called Job Ready Illinois, and you can find it at jobreadyil.gov.
Okay.
You could do all 80 hours online now. And the state approving that was brilliant, because now transportation is not your barrier. You're not paying to go volunteer to keep the food. Like, you're almost spending what you would get in SNAP just getting to the volunteer opportunity. So I love the idea that if we're going to leverage this moment for something that could better someone or give them a better opportunity, I say job training all day. And if you can do that virtually, then that's something that could actually pour into you that could lead you towards your next thing where you might not even need this in the future.
How effective is the job training program? What do they actually have you doing?
I'm not 1,000. I've never been through it, but I think they give you, skills for resume writing, helping you navigate how to do interviews. At this point, we are trying to save people and keep them on the benefits, so it's better than volunteering or nothing. But I haven't actually been through the job. As someone who ran a job training program, I know that there's different levels to job training. And what I think would be great is, and I've been talking to some of the workforce development nonprofits in the city, it'd be great to have them matching. So if you run a job training program that's not approved through SNAP and it wouldn't count, if you start leveraging this website in addition to what you're already doing in your job training program so that they can keep their benefit, I think that's only giving them double. So you're in an actual hands-on, one-on-one job program, but you also do some of this stuff on the website. You'll qualify because you did the 80 hours online, but you're also in a real program that can help you. So I think both are good, but I always think hands-on, in-person is phenomenal. So
that's awesome. I want to talk, though, about the volunteering as well. Somebody's listening and saying, well, that's not so bad. If you want to qualify for benefits, you get to volunteer. What have been some of the barriers to folks who have been trying to be a part of the volunteer program as a result of these new changes?
Well, most people didn't know where to go. I remember when this all first happened, like, where are you supposed to go find a volunteer opportunity? Most people wouldn't know exactly the first step. Illinois actually has something called Serve Illinois, and they have consolidated a lot of opportunities for volunteerism across the state.
Okay.
So one thing we did as an organization is we put ours up there, first of all, as a model. So the Food Depository is Chicago's food bank or Cook County's food bank. You can volunteer at the Food Depository twice a day, and we have 150 volunteers twice a day. So we know we are an option for people.
And that's a real volunteer program, by the way, when you get to, it's actually enriching.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work,
They're working you over there.
I did one a long time ago.
It's not a joke, right? Yeah. I heard. So I would say, once we did that, we realized we could be a convener in this space. So then we reached out to all the nonprofits in the Cook County area and said, you should get on Serve Illinois. We shouldn't have people figuring out where to go. Let's lead everybody to one place. So people started posting their opportunities on Serve Illinois. And, we have a network of 850 food partners. So pantries, after school, whatever, all the different programs we have, we got them to put theirs on there as well. And as we started doing more outreach, that site got bigger and bigger. And so now it's all consolidated and people can go right to that website. And not only can you find volunteer opportunities there, it can be approved and go straight to the state because the state runs the site.
Okay.
And so that's streamlined. Now we're making it easier. And so I know you could also go to your local church and volunteer. They can write you a letter. You could turn that in. That's simple. But if you don't know where to go, Serve Illinois is a great place to start. And I think that was the number one barrier, was like, where do I even start?
That's so, I love that how seamless that is, because in New York, where I live now, and I'm not on SNAP benefits, but someone close to me is going through the process. And it's someone who is mid-career, so doesn't need a job readiness program per se, but was laid off because of what we've been going through in this economy for the past several years and needed the SNAP benefits. And so a letter was received that speaks to going to the Salvation Army to set up your volunteer hours. When you attempt to call these locations, no one answers the phone. If you go there and you arrive, they say we have enough volunteers today, so now you can't get your hours signed off on.
Okay.
So if you're saying here in the state of Illinois that there's a one-stop shop website that you can go to, I really want folks here in this state to take advantage of this opportunity. They're making it easier for you to maintain these benefits. And it sounds like there are resources on these websites to help you navigate what those requirements are, because even the paperwork can be hard to discern
Absolutely.
and understand.
Yeah, like even let's say you went to your local church and did it, then you get the letter. Where are you taking the letter? How do you get it onto your website? It's difficult. You have pointed out, like, anybody's ever got an ID, you know how hard it is to sometimes just navigate. Comment says, why do I need ID to get ID, right? That's my favorite Mos Def comment song, questions. But it's frustrating. Dealing with state, that's our engagement with the state looks like that. But for folks who really need it, when you're working hourly wage, like you said, an hourly job, who has time in the day to take off work to figure out, how do I turn in this letter from the church that says I volunteered? Or how do you navigate that with your child care or helping your elderly grandparent and all the things that you have to do in life to navigate figuring out where to go, how to get it in and make it count, it's difficult. It's truly difficult. And I've been talking about this on social more, and I get a lot of comments where it's like, well, why can't people just work? Why is that so hard? Well, what's the big deal? And I often reply and say, most of these people are working, first of all, slow down. Yeah. And second, for the ones who aren't, there's typically a reason. The number one thing I think is important to note is that there are exemptions to this rule. And the exemptions are long. I couldn't even name them all, but the biggest one is if you're disabled. Yeah. That could be a physical or mental ailment. And the second is if you're a caregiver. Because I think there are so many people who are caregivers to a child, caregivers to an elderly parent, or caregivers to a disabled person. And those two are the biggest exemptions. And all it takes is a one-page form. You turn that into the state, and they could exempt you. You will never have to deal with this work requirement at all. Okay. So it's important to note that, yes, you can work. Yes, you can volunteer. Yes, you can do job training. But for the people who are losing their benefits because of this, likely many of them are actually exempt and just don't even know this is happening. Don't even know they're exempt. That disabled piece is important too, because if you have a disability that's keeping you from being able to work, and maybe you don't have a dedicated caregiver, navigating this, Lord forbid, an ailment that makes it hard for you to read, or some type of mental impairment, navigating this can be very, very confusing. You know, I've seen situations with folks with disabilities, because now you have to, if you're on Medicare or Medicaid, getting a primary care physician to get you a letter that proves that you're disabled, so that you can submit that to the state. That is the thing we think is the biggest issue, actually. Really? Is people navigating these exemptions, because we know that many of the folks left are actually exempt. And they either, like you said, struggle to navigate these processes, or don't even know any of this is happening, or that they could be exempt. So if I might be exempt, what's my first step? First step would be, another thing the state did that I'm impressed by is they created a screener on their website where you could just answer a few questions and it'll tell you if you're likely exempt. So that's first. If you think you're exempt, do that screener. It takes like 60 seconds. And if it says you're likely exempt, it's a one-page exemption form. You get that in. I would take that physically, if you have time or ability, to a local Illinois Department of Human Service office and turn it in and see if you are actually exempt. I think that's the number one step for people to do. Actually, I think everybody should do that, because if you could be exempt, why would you even want to deal with this? So I would say start there. Screen yourself, see if you're exempt, and get the form in. Word. Yeah. Let's get into the work. So with food insecurity here in Illinois, how many people, you know, even prior to this, have been helped by having the chance to have LINK, EBT, SNAP benefits? How many were at risk, and how has your work helped to save some of those folks? So we have about 2 million people in the state of Illinois who receive SNAP. And when the bill first passed, the thing we knew would happen first was the work requirement would get, enacted. On February 1st, when we had to start counting, there were 450,000 people who the state was identifying as, you're able-bodied, you should be working, and we don't have any work for you in our system. So my team at the Greater Chicago Food Depository worked hand in hand with the state to talk about what could we do to exempt people automatically, people we don't even want to have to try to figure out this form, people we know are likely disabled or have some of the things that the state already has information about. And after conversations and work with the state, they automatically exempted half of those people. So that's a blessing. So we cut that number in half after a few months. Then we knew after that, we got to tick everybody else off one by one, meaning we need billboards, we need radio, we need TV, we need to be in the community. So there was one Sunday I was at a church in the morning, church in the afternoon, church at night, right? We were out there in the neighborhood getting the word out. We partnered with the city, the county, some of our elected officials, all the community organizations in Chicago, and across the state, honestly. We had to make this statewide quick. We started a coalition. We started something called Save Our SNAP. We have 90 organizations in that coalition at this point, asking everybody to join us and get the word out. In the end, on Friday, May 1st, we knew that people would lose their benefits. That number was 120,000. So that means we saved over 300,000 people and kept them on their benefits. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, I'm proud of you for doing that work.
Yeah,
that's hard.
That's dope.
That's dope. Because when advocacy groups are actually able to do what it is they're set up to do, those are success stories that we need to hear more and more about, especially at a time when so many programs that the people need are being cut. What made you decide to get in this work? Like, I heard your path, coming out of Howard. At 21, Howard Law. I don't even know how that happens. But did you know that you would get into advocacy work? Was that the plan from the beginning?
I knew I was interested in public service. I was always interested in politicians and working on the Hill, legislation and policy like that. I didn't know that it would turn into all of this. Like, I would not have seen this for myself. I kind of jokingly always say I'd never take a government affairs type of job, because you end up doing a lot of lobbying, where you're going and meeting with legislators and kind of begging them to do the right thing, which is a little bit annoying to me, to be honest. But I remember I have a mentor, Dr. Helene Gill. She's over the Chicago Community Trust back then. And I was at Growing Home, and I was like, I'm leading a nonprofit. I'm having to raise money. I feel like I'm begging people all the time for money. And she told me, she said, let me tell you one thing you are. You are an amazing advocate. Go in there and tell the story of the work you're doing. The money will follow. And I feel like ever since then, I realized that, like, I'm naturally an advocate. I naturally fight for stuff. So now it's just about, matching whatever I thought I was going to do with what I'm doing and pushing. So now when I go meet with a legislator, I just feel like this is my job to tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it. Come along or don't. If I'm raising money, same thing. Like, we are doing something powerful in community. We are saving people's SNAP, which helps them eat, which helps their pockets. You don't want to come, that's cool. We're going either way.
Right.
So now I think this was naturally, whatever I thought politics was, this is what it actually is. Helping people, fighting for people. So I think I was always going to do this. I just didn't exactly know how it was going to turn out.
What's been the most rewarding part of this work?
Man, like the other day, knowing the 300,000, like being able to even when I was at Growing Home, when I was in Inglewood and working at that nonprofit, I remember meeting people who formerly incarcerated folk, they're about to get their first job, and them coming in and being like, Miss Danielle, I got my first apartment. Miss Danielle, I got a job. Like, to me, that's why we do this, right? So whatever you're doing, no matter how challenging it is, if you can get up and go to work and somebody's life is changing, that's why you do it. That's the best part.
Amen. Before we get out of here, you got to tell me one more time, where can folks go? And I got to ask you this, actually. The Agriculture Secretary was actually celebrating that over 4 million people were about to lose their SNAP benefits. And the reason cited was this erroneous claim of fraud.
Right.
After researching, I found that the SNAP program is actually one of the most...
Yes. I love that you know that.
Well, finish the sentence for me.
Yeah, this is actually the government program with the least amount of fraud. And so when people say this is the most fraudulent program or that everybody's a scammer, we even heard a legislator in Illinois say that to us yesterday when we were in Springfield. And it's just not true. You said the myth bust. Let's bust that myth. This is actually a program that has like less than 1% fraud. And that's insane from a perspective of like a government program. So it is important to note that most people who get this benefit are using it for exactly what it's for, and they need it. And I would just offer that where does this benefit go? It doesn't go in the hand of like your cousin or my friend. It actually is going to the grocer. So let's call a spade a spade. This is actually a program that helps our economy. In the state of Illinois alone, it brings in like $5.5 billion a year. That's spent in grocery stores. That's spent in local markets. That's spent in corner stores.
Yeah.
So what happens if 2 million people in the state of Illinois lose their benefits to our economy? And SNAP is a multiplier. When somebody goes in and buys chicken, they also gonna buy the cleaning supplies. SNAP is usually multiplied by $1.50, maybe $1.80. So that's like almost $7-8 billion in our state economy. We can't lose that. The grocer can't take that loss of margin, because if you're in a community that has majority, like 20-30% SNAP user, What happens to that grocery store if that comes out? They close. Or first what they'll do is cut jobs or raise prices on everybody else. So let's be honest about the impact that this has beyond the individual. It has an impact on our economy in large.
I couldn't think of a better person to speak to this. You just unlocked a core memory too. One of my first corporate jobs, I was a district manager intern for Aldi. And most of our transactions were EBT transactions when I was working there. So we had a core customer base that relied on these benefits, and in turn, the grocer relied on these benefits.
Absolutely.
And so, I'm surprised actually now that you bring it up that we aren't seeing more of those businesses serving as advocates for the. Are you seeing some of that actually?
A little bit, but I'm also, that has been one of my biggest questions. Like, why are they not louder about this? Because it's really lost for them. But I will say in Illinois, the Illinois Retail Merchants Association has been a great partner, and they're showing up for us, helping us, co-sponsoring bills, doing press with us, because the money is lost there. That's truly where the money is lost. And I think the grocer is going to feel this very quickly. So in our state, on Friday, last Friday, May 1st, 120,000 people lost their benefits. That's money not going in the store.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know the grocer is going to feel this. And if next year we lose it all together, the grocer can't handle that. And our economy can't either.
How do we get those benefits back for those 120,000 people? If I just lost my benefits, I'm watching this interview, Danielle, what do I do? Where do I go?
You need to reapply. You need to reapply for SNAP today.
Okay.
You need to make sure that you go to the state either in person, you call, you go online, abe.illinois.gov, or even the food depository. We are a place that has benefit enrollment support every single day. You can call us 8:30 to 5. We will sit and work with you to get your application back in. And I think what we need to do is get people back re-enrolled. We need to go after every single one of the 120 and get them back in, find them that volunteer opportunity, find them that job training, or get that exemption form in and reapply.
Man, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on Chestnut Checkers. I appreciate you, Danielle.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I want you to have the last word. What is the main thing? Give one last appeal. What should we know? What should we be thinking about? And whether you're a person who benefits are at risk, or if you're watching this and you're like, how can I be a part of this campaign? How can I help? How can I spread the word? What do you have to say to us?
I would say, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. Hunger is a policy choice. There is nobody in this state or this country who should be going hungry. We know SNAP is one of the most powerful ways to end hunger. For every meal we can provide in the emergency food system, SNAP provides 9. There is no pantry or food bank that can make up for the SNAP program. So that means if you are somebody on SNAP, our goal is to make sure that you stay on it. If you are somebody who has a family member who's on SNAP, reach out to them and support them to get back on the program or to stay on the program. And if you're just somebody who cares about this, join the fight. We can save SNAP in Illinois. We can save SNAP as a country if we fight back. We need to make sure that we are sending people to DC who are going to reverse the big, beautiful bill. And the people who are local, let's think about ways that we can support people right here in the state of Illinois and fund and give them money to eat. Everybody in our community should eat. We can't stop until they do.
This is Chestnut Checkers, and we're definitely about to start playing chess out here. This is Danielle Perry. I'm Doma T. Pongo. Thanks for tuning in. And once again, thank you to the Greater Chicago Food Depository for supporting this episode. Appreciate you for being here.